right, when you're ready, Alan, it's all you.
Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing? So I'm glad to see a lot of people that I haven't seen in a while. I see, looks like we have Thelma and Daryl and Annie and who else? Let's see. Elizabeth, Matt, Margie, and Vera. Well, we miss you. Just want you to know that we miss you guys. We can't wait till you start coming back. So welcome to Science with Alan. And today I thought we would talk about, most of you probably know by now that I really love nature and I love the earth and I love everything about nature. So I want to talk about nature's or the earth's extremes. Now, what do I mean by extreme? So we're going to talk about like the coldest, the hottest, the smallest, the biggest, all these things that you can find on Earth, but they're not just the mediocre stuff, but the biggest and the tallest and the most extreme. Okay. So at any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Unfortunately, you guys are not going to be able to see the screen, so I'll try to explain what it is that I'm showing. So I'm going to pop that up, share my screen here. There we go, slideshow. Okay, so it just popped up. So let's talk about the lowest place on our planet. Now, that's on the surface of a planet, of course, we're talking about. The lowest place on our planet is a place called the Dead Sea. Now, it's called the Dead Sea because as the water evaporates, the salt gets more and more concentrated, and very, very few things can live in really salted water. So the Dead Sea, and it turns out that the Dead Sea is actually
Join the meeting.
1,378 feet below sea level. So that's the lowest on dry land. The next slide is a picture of a cave, and it's the deepest cave on the planet, and it is 6,561 feet deep. The next place we're looking at, it's actually a picture of a salt flat with some mountains in the background. It's the flattest place on Earth, and it's in Peru. It's completely, absolutely flat for about 4,065 miles. Like you may have seen on TV or may have seen in newspapers or magazines that in the United States, we have the salt flats out in Utah. Well, this is much bigger than those. And the reason it's cool to have these salt flats is they actually use it to test the fastest cars on Earth. Knowing that they're not going to hit a bump or a rock or anything, it's just one of the safest places to try to break the land speed record. So the hottest place on the planet where people live consistently is a place in Ethiopia, and the average daily temperature is 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Now,
wow.
I wish it was 95 degrees Fahrenheit right now, but when it's 95 degrees, 365 days a year, that could be a little oppressive. So imagine these people have had to learn how to survive in this constant heat and constant
Jones.
Join the meeting.
Now, you ever hear of Yosemite National Park?
Yep.
Well, Yosemite National Park is known for this big slab of granite called El Capitan. And it's one of the sheerest drops of rock on the planet, but it's not the biggest, actually. And there's a place in the Andes that's called Mount Thor. and the vertical drop is 4,100 feet straight down on a sheer cliff.
That'll kill you.
Yeah, that a lot less than that would kill you.
Yeah, let me just ask if anyone's got their TV or radio on in the background. If you could mute it, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, Lord.
All right, ready to go?
Yep.
All right, so the largest mountain range on our planet above sea level is the Andes Mountains. Now, the Andes are in South America, and the reason I say above sea level, because when you go down underneath the water in the ocean, there's the Mid-Atlantic Rift, which is actually much, much longer, and it's a mountain range that is much longer, but this is above sea level. The wettest place on Earth is in Colombia. Now, last year, it rained a lot around here. We actually had about 12 inches more rain than we normally do. But that was still a lot less than, we don't even get really 24 inches rain. I'd say about 12 inches. So in this place, the wettest place on the planet, gets 467 inches of rain a year.
Wow.
That's a lot of rain. And people live there, which is pretty amazing. Now, I want to talk about, this is interesting. Let me actually just jump ahead for a second. Yeah, okay. So the next picture is a picture of Mount Everest. Anybody want to guess why I have a picture of Mount Everest? What do you think that claim to fame is? Well, the claim to fame for Mount Everest is it's the tallest mountain above sea level on our planet. Now,
What?
understand.
Okay, what was that?
I said Miss Virginia Waldeck is moving today, and she wanted everybody to know that she appreciates everything you've done.
Do you know where she's moving?
Huh?
Do you know where she's moving?
Where's she moving to?
Are you
Durham.
guys asking a question
Oh,
or?
is she?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll try to give her a call. Thank you for letting me know.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Okay.
You ready, Jackie?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I
Sorry,
couldn't
guys.
hear what you were saying.
All right, so I have a picture of Mount Everest here on screen.
Okay.
And Mount Everest is, its claim to fame is it's the tallest mountain above sea level on our planet. Now, the next picture is actually a picture of another mountain that is not as tall as Mount Everest, but it reaches higher into the sky. If you go to the top of this mountain, you are the closest that you could ever get to space standing on Earth. So it's not the tallest mountain on the planet, but yet it's the highest. Why do you think that is? Anybody want to take a guess? The name of the mountain is Chimborazo.
Is that because it actually sits at a higher elevation than Mount Everest does?
So that's actually a good guess. So our planet is like a top and it spins in space, right? So even though it's a sphere, it's not a perfect sphere because the poles are flattened because of the rotation and the equator is actually elongated. It actually has a bulge. So even though this mountain is smaller than Mount Everest, because it actually starts at 2,000 feet above sea level than Mount Everest, it's actually taller into the sky than Mount Everest is. So if you want to get the closest you could ever get to space without flying in a rocket ship, you have to go to the top of this mountain.
What was it again, and where is it?
It's the name of the mountain is Chimborazo. And let's see if I could, I'm not really sure where it is. I didn't write that down, I'm sorry. So it's actually 2 miles, believe it or not, higher than Mount Everest into the sky.
Holy moly.
Wow.
Now, the next picture, I have another mountain, and I put these in a row because there's always a lot of confusion about the biggest mountain, the tallest mountain, stuff like that. Well, this mountain is actually called Mauna Kea, and Mauna Kea is in Hawaii. And if you ever went there, you know, you think of Hawaii as being a warm tropical island, but the top of Mauna Kea is usually almost always snow covered because it's so tall. And it actually has this really great observatory, astronomical observatory, because the sky is so clear and the air is so thin up there. So it's not very tall compared to Mount Everest or Chimborazo above sea level, but a mountain is measured from the base of the mountain to the summit. Well, because Mauna Kea is actually a volcano that came out of the ocean, most of the mountain is actually below sea level. So the biggest mountain on our planet is actually Mauna Kea when measured from the base to the summit. All right, so the next slide is a place which is the coldest inhabited place on our planet. And it's a place in Russia, and the average daily temperature is minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So imagine living your daily life at around minus 58. Actually, the coldest temperature ever recorded in this place in Russia, I don't want to butcher the name, it's Omayalaya, something like that, I can't even pronounce it. But it was minus 69.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're talking, it's not the coldest place on the planet, but it's the coldest inhabited place on the planet. So people actually live there year round. Someplace I would never want to go on vacation. All right, we're going to get into some different things. So far, we've been talking about, you know, the Earth itself. So let's talk about some animals possibly, or some plants. So the most venomous snake on the planet is called the Taipan snake. If this snake bit you, you would have no chance to survive. It's the most venomous snake on the planet. Now, what I have in front of me here is a picture of a tiny little mammal that looks like a bat sitting on someone's fingertip. And this is the smallest mammal in the world. It's called the Bumblebee Bat. And they call it that because when it flies, it's not much bigger than a bumblebee. And people used to think it was a bee. It's actually
Join the meeting.
Picture. The largest animal on our planet is known as the blue whale. A blue whale, yep. Now, a whale, it's a whale, so it's a mammal, and lives in the ocean. And it's a baleen feeder. It's not a carnivore, and it doesn't, you know, attack things. It's actually what they consider a gentle giant. It just kind of cruises along the ocean. And it has it has in its mouth called baleen. And baleen actually sips out smaller animals, mostly things like krill and plankton, other kinds of plankton. And that's how this animal eats. The biggest animal in the world actually survives on some of the smallest animals in the world. So a blue whale can actually grow to be 98 feet long. And that's actually bigger than any dinosaur that ever lived. So this is actually the biggest animal that ever lived on our planet that we know of.
That's pretty amazing.
And it could weigh up to 18 tons.
So 36,000 pounds. Holy moly.
Yeah, that was pretty fast math, girl. Now I have a picture of a sequoia, which is the biggest tree in the world. And this one specifically, let's see if I can, here we go, is 209 feet tall. And you can go to national parks and actually look at this. Matter of fact, this picture shows a lot of people walking around the base, and it's a giant sequoia, and it's 209 feet tall.
Wow.
Now it's kind of hard.
So
You can't see the picture. It's kind of hard to even imagine what 209 feet is, but it's really amazingly big. I've actually seen this tree. The largest flower in the world is called a Rafflesia, and it is 3 feet in diameter and weighs 15 pounds.
Wow.
Now, it's interesting because I'm going to jump to the next one real quick, and I'll tell you something interesting. The next picture, for some reason there's no picture there. Anyway, the largest flower, or I should say the tallest flower in the world, is something called a Titan arum. And it's 12 feet tall and weighs 150 pounds.
Wow.
So the largest in diameter is 3 feet in diameter, weighs about 15 pounds. And the arum, which is 12 feet tall, can weigh 150 pounds. Now, it's interesting because both of these flowers don't bloom very often, maybe even once in a lifetime. Because you can imagine how much energy it takes for a plant to produce a flower that size. And if I'm not mistaken, both of these, when they bloom, they smell like rotting flesh.
Oh, yeah, right. That's what I was thinking, yeah.
So it's not something that you'd want to like put in your house for decoration or anything like that. But anybody want to take a guess why it might smell like that? What would a plant want to smell, have a really smelly flower for?
More predators?
Possibly. An animal probably wouldn't want to eat it if it smelled that bad. But that's actually a good point, Daryl. But that wouldn't be the main point.
Pollination?
Exactly, pollination. So what it does is it attracts insects that are looking for dead animals, that live, like flies, for instance. Flies are always attracted to the smell of death, and other things like blowflies and stuff like that. And it actually uses those flies to reproduce, and that's the reason for that. Okay, now I have a picture of Antarctica with a bunch of penguins. It's a really pretty picture. Wish you can see it. But the Antarctica is the coldest place on our planet. You know how we talk about the coldest place where people inhabit? Well, it turns out that naturally, no humans live in Antarctica. They do
research in Antarctica.
Yeah, so we actually have places where people do scientific research, and they live in Antarctica for maybe 6 months or a year at a time. But no humans permanently live in Antarctica because it's always so cold. And I'll give you another interesting thing. We're gonna jump real quick to something later, but most of Antarctica is completely covered in snow and ice. Now we know there has to be precipitation for that to happen, but it snows so infrequently in Antarctica that it's actually considered a desert. Like most people, when you think of desert, you think of hot, you think of cactus, you think of things like that. Well,
yeah, you think of miles of sand too.
Yeah, the definition of a desert is a place that gets less than 8 inches of rain a year. Especially precipitation. So think about this, guys. There are places in Antarctica where the glaciers and the ice is thousands of feet thick. Think of how many years that ice has been building up for it to get that thick. So, sort of to go off on another tangent, one of the reasons why scientists are so afraid that if the ice melts on Antarctica, that the oceans are going to raise by 5 feet or more, is because all that water from, glaciers that are, thousands of feet thick is all water that will eventually end up in the ocean, and the ocean will rise because of it. And that's all because of the warming of our climate. Okay, the next picture is a picture of a desert, and it is a picture of one of the driest places on our planet, and it's known as the Atacama Desert. And it's in South America. For as long as humans have been keeping track and living in that area, there are places in the Atacama Desert where it's never rained. As a matter of fact, scientists go down there. They actually went down there to test the lunar rover. Actually, one of the rovers that they sent up to Mars, because of the landscape is so dry and so sandy and rocky and so on. And there are actually places in the Atacama Desert where there's no life, not even microbial life, because it's so hot and dry. All right, so that's actually the end of the slideshow, so I'm going to unshare this. But I do have a couple of really interesting other facts. So we talked about the deepest cave on our planet, but the absolute deepest point on our planet that you can go is actually underneath the ocean, and it's called the Marianas Trench.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Marianas Trench, right.
Yeah, in the Marianas Trench, there's a place called Challenger Deep, which is the deepest place, and it's actually much deeper than Mount Everest is high.
I think the Marianas Trench is off the California coast.
It's actually off the coast of, I think, Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken. You might be thinking of what's the name of that fault? The San Andreas Fault, maybe you're thinking of?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
So the longest river in the world is actually the Nile River, which is in Africa,
right,
and Egypt.
Right.
But the largest river in the world, which is in magnitude, in density, in how much water it has and how big it is per volume, is actually the Amazon River. Now, the deepest river in the world is actually the Congo River. Let's see. There's a lake actually in Russia called Lake Baikal, I think it's called. I always get that name wrong. But that's the deepest lake in the world. I believe it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 7 miles deep. The largest lake actually here is in the United States, and it's Lake Superior. Now, the largest island on our planet is actually Greenland. There's lots of islands. I mean, actually, I grew up on an island. It was 100 miles long by about 20 miles wide. And I, we used to think that was big. But when you look at a place like
Long Island, Long Island.
So, Alan, how do they distinguish between an island and a continent? I mean, because you have Australia, which looks like an island.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I've asked that question. So it turns out that Antarctica is considered an island continent. So yeah, any land that's completely surrounded by water by definition is an island. But because Antarctica is so big, it's considered a continent rather than, most people don't consider it an island.
And Australia is the same way then?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's an island continent.
So the longest cave system on our planet is actually here in the United States too, which is in Kentucky. It's called Mammoth Cave. Cave, Kentucky. And that's a place that you can go and you can hang out and go for tours and stuff like that. So any questions, guys?
Yeah. Well.
Oh, It
Too bad.
doesn't necessarily have to be about the longest, deepest, widest, hottest, or anything like that. But any science questions we could talk about, we have time to have a discussion if you'd like.
Yeah. Too bad we didn't. I was thinking, too bad we didn't go to that cave system when we were in Kentucky.
Yeah, you certainly could have.
Yeah, right. It wasn't on the itinerary though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool because you uh-oh. I just lost my screen. What happened? Oh no.
You're still there. I can still see you.
Sorry. It just went away on my computer. All right, guys, does anybody have any questions or like I said, it could be about anything. We could just have a discussion about science. How's everybody keeping busy during this time away from the center?
I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream, Alan.
Okay, yeah.